Hey there friends, I'm Addie and you are now watching, Books and Tea Time, and Kilo is also here. Okay, let's try that again. Hello friends, I'm Addie and you're watching Books and Tea Time, and today we are going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag. I love doing the mid-year book freakout tag every year. It's so much fun. It's a great waypoint and way to assess how my reading year is going, but it's also a great way to update you all on how my reading year is going. Not only because I'm just getting back into the filming grind, but even when I was filming on a regular basis, I did my wrap-ups seasonally, like every couple of months, and I haven't been doing those recently. So today we're going to talk about the mid-year book freakout tag and go through all the questions. I have my spreadsheet that I have been using that I got on Etsy to track all of my reading progress, and then I of course have a Google Doc with the questions open here. Real quick, just some stats that we can go over. So far I have read 38 books. My loose goal is 70. I would love to hit 100 again. I hit 100 for the first time last year, but I'm not really forcing myself or pushing myself too hard. I have read 33 fiction titles and 5 nonfiction, which is pretty good for me. My goal for the year was to read 12 nonfiction, like one for every month. So I'm only one behind, and I feel like I have been doing better, especially over the past 2 months or so. I have read just over 6,000 pages, and I have listened to 254 hours of audiobooks. Let's jump right into the questions, shall we? Okay, question number 1, as usual, is the best book that you have read so far this year, and I actually have 2 for this one because I couldn't decide. One of them I own physically and one of them I don't own physically yet. First, let's talk about Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. I read this in, I think, April? This was my first R.F. Kuang and I absolutely devoured it. I actually listened to the audiobook and then I purchased a copy because I got to go meet R.F. Kuang and I got my book signed and personalized, which was so special. So I do want to eventually reread and annotate this because I didn't annotate it the first time around. But the audiobook was fantastic and I really enjoyed reading it audibly. This book is so clever and so brilliant. There were so many moments when I was reading this that I just had to pause it and sit with the brilliance of what R.F. Kuang is doing in this book. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars, obviously, and I loved it. It's definitely going to be in my top books of the year, if not my best book of the year. I knew that R.F. Kuang's writing was great. I mean, so many people love her so much, but she is just genuinely, I think, one of the smartest people on earth. I did feel a little stupid at moments, not because the book is inaccessible, but just because she is doing such satirical heavy lifting in this in a way that I feel like it's so easy for people to miss the point of this book. But anyway, I should probably tell you what it's about. So this book is written from the perspective of a white woman who's an author, and her frenemy, I guess, Athena Liu, who is a very incredibly successful author, and she is also a Chinese American woman. And from the jump, her debut was skyrocketed her to fame, and she landed this Netflix deal at the beginning of the book, and then by a freak happenstance, there's a freak accident and Athena dies. And our main character, June, takes Athena's newest manuscript and passes it off as her own, and there's just so much criticism and discussion of the publishing industry. It's one of the most brilliant things that I've ever read. So I highly recommend it if you have not read it yet. My second one, because I can never make a decision and choose just one, is Knock Knock Open Wide by Neil Sharpson. This is a horror novel, and I typically, up until this year, have not historically read a lot of horror or a lot of what I would consider scary books because I'm a little bit of a baby when it comes to horror, but this book was so damn good. This is an Irish folk tale, Irish mythology inspired horror story, and we follow a mother and a daughter and basically 2 timelines with these 2 different generations of women. Basically, the main general premise, what I can tell you, is that the mother goes missing for like a short period of time when she's like a young adult woman, like in her like early 20s, maybe late teens. And she is found and she comes back, but things aren't as they seem when she comes back. And so we follow a little bit of that past timeline and like trying to figure out what happened and like what's going on with that timeline. But then we also follow her daughter, who is about to start at university in the present, and her kind of like unraveling all of the past and her relationship with her mother. For me specifically, as a reader of Irish literature and like a fan of anything that includes Irish mythos or Irish folklore, I ate this up. I thought it was so good. And he has another book coming out later this year, which we would talk about later in this video, because it is one that I am putting on my anticipated releases for 2025. Okay, best sequel, hands down, goes to The Perilous Undertaking by Deanna Rayburn. This is the second book, obviously, in the Veronica Speedwell series, which, if I move my head, you will see I have purchased and read all of them. I listened to the first book in this series, A Curious Beginning, at the very, very beginning of the year, and I really enjoyed it. I had so much fun. I had heard Katie Coulson talk so much and gush so much about this series, and I finally caved and was like, okay, I need to know what is going on, what she's on about, because people have such high praise to say about this series. And then I read the second one, and my teeth were sunk in, and I binge read all 9 of these in the span of like a month and a half. I am obsessed. I did listen to all of them audibly, and then, of course, I had to purchase copies. So now I have copies of all of them, and I do plan on rereading and annotating the crap out of this series because I am obsessed. This is absolutely a new all-time favorite, which is why it's like on my little favorites shelf situation right here. This series is so good. This is a historical mystery series with a like heavy romance subplot that is just absolutely delicious and hysterical and amazing in every single way. I love it so much. We're going to talk about it a lot in this video, this whole series, but this one truly is the book that got me hooked on the series as a whole. And even after reading all 9 of them, this is definitely among my absolute favorite titles in the whole series. Also, like, look at this cover. She's so cute. The next question is new books that I need to read that are already out. And so I have 4. First is one that I just recently bought, and that's The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. I have not read anything by Joe Abercrombie before. I want to read a lot of his stuff. I just saw this at Half Price Books, and it's his newest release, and like, it's so stunning. Like, truly, it's such a gorgeous book, and I've heard a lot of good things about it so far. Early buzz. It's a fantasy horror. My dad is literally in the middle of reading it right now and is saying great things about it, so I think I'm going to start with this and then dive into one of his series. And then I also want to read The River Has Roots by Amal El-Mohtar. I have heard such stunning things about this book, and it is a fantasy novella also that came out this year. I forget when it came out, but definitely on my list, on my radar. I think I'm gonna do that one audibly because I believe it's like a dual narration situation. And then I also just recently got 2 arcs that I am actually thinking about doing a reading vlog for. The first one is The Entanglement of Rival Wizards by Sarah Rash, I think is how you say her last name. So I'm going to be reading that one. It's technically not out yet, but because I have an arc, I'm putting it in this category. And then also The Son of the Morning by Akweke Emezi. Akweke Emezi is writing a romantasy book. Just let that sink in for a second. If you didn't already know that, pre-order it right now. So I'm going to be reading that, obviously. Okay, now for the fun part. Anticipated releases for the second half of the year. So things that aren't out yet. Obviously, the 2 that I just mentioned, but as I said, I have arcs for them, so we're reading them early. All of these books are by authors that I love. First, T. Kingfisher is on something. This woman has 3 books coming out in the second half of this year. I don't know what she's on, but I want some of it because that's just crazy. But okay, first and foremost, in I believe August, we have Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher. This is a reimagining of Snow White, and literally all I needed to know that it was by T. Kingfisher. I binged their entire backlist last year after I read What Moves the Dead. I literally read everything. Every adult novel that they have written, I read it. T. Kingfisher is so good at writing retelling retellings of like fairy tales. It's just, it takes the essence and the premise and all the vibes and the things that you want from a fantasy retelling, but then it adds such uniqueness and such an interesting spin, and you never know what's going to happen. Absolutely cannot wait for this. Then in September, the next novel in the Sworn Soldiers series by T. Kingfisher, which is like What Moves the Dead and What Feasts at Night. The third one is coming out, and it's called What Stalks the Deep. And this cover, oh my god, put me in the ground. Put me in the ground, bury me with it. It's so stunning. I'm obsessed with it. So obviously, I can't wait for that one. Then also in September, we have the sequel / prequel to Bunny by Mona Awad called We Love You, Bunny. I'm a little nervous for this one, just because I don't want it to ruin the glory that is Bunny, but nevertheless, I am obviously very interested, so I will be reading that. Also in September, we have Sarah Gailey, who is again one of my all-time favorite authors, coming out with a new novella called Spread Me. Let me just read you the description of this, because it sounds so diabolical, but like in the best way. It says, Spread Me is a darkly seductive tale of survival after a routine probe at a research station turns deadly when the team discovers a strange specimen in search of a warm place to stay. I need to know more. I need to know more. I'm so excited. Also, the cover, disgusting, but like in the best way, in the way that I am feral for it. You know what I mean? Then, as I previously mentioned, Neil Sharpson has another novel coming out called The Burial Tide, which, again, horrifying cover. Absolutely horrifying. And it takes place on the Aran Islands, I believe, in Ireland. So it's like an island horror situation. And I believe there's also some mythology, folktale stuff woven into that. So obviously, sign me up. Then Niveau, the next book in the Singing Hills cycle, A Mouthful of Dust, is coming out. Can't wait for that. Going to absolutely devour that one on day one. Girl Dinner by Olivia Blake. Olivia Blake is writing a horror book called Girl Dinner. I don't need to know anything else. I'm afraid to know anything else, but I will be picking that up and reading that. Then, of course, everybody and their mother is excited for Mate, the sequel to Bride, to come out in October by Ali Hazelwood. And last but not least, the third T. Kingfisher coming out at the end of this year is called Snake Eater. That comes out in November. The description for this one says, in an isolated desert town, a young woman seeking a fresh start is confronted by ancient gods, malevolent supernatural forces, and eccentric neighbors. For fans of Sylvia Moreno Garcia, Chuck Tingle, and Rachel Harrison. Say no more, T. Kingfisher. Say no more. So yeah, those are all of my anticipated releases for the second half of the year. I have been, knock on wood, really good about reading releases as they have been coming out this year. So I'm hoping that we can continue that trend and read most of these in a reasonable time. Next question, our biggest disappointment, Scythe and Sparrow by Brynn Weaver. I was really let down by this. I loved Butcher and Blackbird, obviously, which is the first book in the series. I also really loved Leather and Lark. A lot of people did not like the second installment, Leather and Lark. I thought it was fun. It was not as good as the first one, but I still really enjoyed it. But this one, I was not a fan of the pacing or like the timing of any of the plot stuff. Like most of this book, like 80% of this book happens in other books. And so like we're just shifting perspectives. And I know like some people like that, but I really dislike that. I don't know what it is, but it just kind of pisses me off when we are seeing like time that has already passed in other books happen again. I think it's just like a psychological issue that I have. That's like my own personal problem, but I didn't really care for that. Also, I really disliked the ending and just like the last little chunk of it, if you know what I'm talking about. I mean, it wasn't terrible. I still annotated it a little bit, but it was just not my fave. My biggest surprise for this one, I'm gonna say Never Whistle at Night, edited by Shane Hawk, I believe. This is an anthology, and that's why I am kind of saying this is a surprise, because I historically haven't really read that many anthologies and haven't really enjoyed short stories that much, just because I really love intense character work and character development. That's one of the reasons why I really like fantasy, I think. And so I struggle a little bit with short stories because they're just over so fast. But I loved this anthology. So I think the subtitle is an anthology of dark indigenous horror. I really enjoyed all of these stories, and I mean, there were authors that I had read from before that I was like just excited to see their work, like Rebecca Roanhorse is in there. But I also found a lot of authors that I'm excited to try. And also, in addition to that, there are several authors that I currently have on my TBR that I read their short stories, and it made me want to like bump them up even higher. Like I read the short story in there by Tommy Orange, and it made me want to bump up there and like some of his other stuff to the top of my list because I just really, really thoroughly enjoyed his writing. So yeah, it was a little bit of a surprise to me how much I enjoyed, you know, the short fiction style. But I did, and I highly recommend it, especially if you like horror, because it was kind of creepy, and there are some images from that book that still are sitting with me. Next, we have new favorite author, Deanna Rayburn. Hands down, Deanna Rayburn. I love her writing. She is so funny. She knows how to write a mystery really, really well. And I know that I don't read a lot of mystery, and I'm kind of bad at guessing who done it, so to speak, but she gets me every time. She just like, you can tell, like, because they're historical mysteries, you can tell she's done so much research and that she's so knowledgeable about the time period, but at the same time she's bringing a little bit of like modernity into it, and I just love it so much. She's amazing. And I don't know if you can tell, but I did purchase the first book in her newer series, Killers of a Certain Age. I haven't read it yet, but I'm very excited to pick it up and see, you know, what her writing style is like outside of Veronica Speedwell. My new fictional crush. I know what you think I'm gonna say. You think I'm gonna say Stoker, who is the main character, but I'm not. Tiberius Templeton Vane, Stoker's eldest brother, is my new obsession. I love this man. Absolutely adore him. He's featured in a lot of the books, but this is the first book where you meet him. And then also Lucas Bloomquist from Deep End, which was Allie Hazelwood's book that came out in February. Oh my god. That man. Perfection. My new favorite character, not my new favorite crush. Again, I'm going to pull it back up. Veronica and Stoker. Both of them. One of the best duos in literature, but also just individually some of the best characters that I've ever read. The character work is insane. The growth that they experience individually and the growth that they inspire in each other and their friendship and their romance that blossoms, truly the best of the best. I love them both so much. They are just like real people to me. Okay, a book that made you cry. I actually don't think any books made me cry this year. There's a couple books that got me close though. More so than crying, books that made me like truly sad, like deep in my soul. There's a particular scene in Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson that crushed my heart and soul. And then obviously finishing that book crushed me because it's the final book in the first arc. I have a whole 2 reading vlogs about it. Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey is a new release that I read. Also really sad ending. Had me thinking a lot about mortality, humanity, the fate of the world and the environment. Definitely a little bit of a gut punch. And then last but not least, The Lamb by Lucy Rose. This is a horror novel about cannibalism, and the ending, like, you see it coming for about 50 pages before it happens, maybe even more, but there's nothing that will truly prepare you for how sad the end of this book is. It was amazing. I loved it. And I think that's why it hurt so much. But oh my god. A book that made me happy. I reread Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. Look at these tabs, my friends. This is the first Brandon Sanderson that I ever read, and I reread it after finishing Wind and Truth because I was dead inside. I actually have a reading vlog coming, a spoiler reading vlog, where I reread this and talk all about it. That should be coming in a week or 2, but this brought me so much joy. This reread truly just healed all of the sadness that I was feeling after finishing Wind and Truth, and I had so much fun rereading it. It's funny and it's so entertaining. I love the mystery subplot element. The character work is great. There's a little romance subplot that I love, and just all the characters are just so amazing and endearing, and it was great to be back with them. And so this one just brought me a lot of joy and happiness, and I'm so glad that I reread it. Last but not least, must reads before the end of the year. Obviously, all of the anticipated releases that I mentioned also fit into this category, but I picked 3 titles. Just 3. I'm trying to be realistic. I picked 3 titles from my physical TBR that I need to read for the end of the year. I picked 3 fantasy titles. So let's quickly go over those. First, I have Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I started the audiobook for this and I really loved it, but it made me want to annotate it, so I decided to buy a physical copy, and I just haven't gotten around to like reading it physically yet, but it's absolutely stunning, and I really do think that I'm gonna like the whole book because I liked the beginning so much. Also, The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. This one has been on my physical TBR for a while, but now that I've read and enjoyed Yellowface so much, I really want to start with her debut. I know the whole trilogy is just so well loved and renowned in the book community, so I really want to get around to reading at least the first installment this year. And then last we have Mirrored Heavens by Rebecca Roanhorse. This came out last summer. I should have read this last summer. I started it last summer, but then I just I set it down and I was reading other things, and then I just realized that it had been too long, so I do think that I need to start over. I've read like 150 pages or so. This is the 3rd and final installment in one of my favorite fantasy series, Black Sun, which you can see right here is the first one. I know that I'm procrastinating this because I don't want it to be over. I hate feeling the emptiness of finishing a series that you just adore, so I tend to procrastinate reading the last book in a series, but I need to finish it for the end of the year. So that's what we're gonna do. And that is all. That is it, my friends. Please feel free to answer any of these questions in the comments below, especially whatever your best book of the year has been so far. I would love to hear what you've been reading and loving. Let me know if you've read any of these books. I would love to talk about them. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. It means the world to me. I love you all. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if that's your jam, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!